Freedom or death was the motto of the Greeks who fought in the Greek Revolution of 1821 against the Ottoman Empire in an attempt at gaining their freedom. The Greek Revolution of 1821 and other revolutions in the Balkans were a result of rising nationalism, the spread of European enlightenment, and religious and cultural differences as the Ottoman Empire declined. This resulted in the political, economic, and social reforms. The Ottomans subjugated the Byzantines as vassal states in the late 14th century. There were attempts to free the vassals, but in the end, the fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked the end of the Byzantine dominance. During the 15th and 16th centuries, the Ottoman Empire enjoyed great power, having expanded greatly in Europe and North Africa. By the late 16th century and into the 17th century, it became difficult to control and expand because Austria, Russia, and other groups from southern and western Europe became stronger and started challenging the Ottoman Empire. European technology was better than the Ottomans, who increasingly could not control their empire. Political weakness caused problems and led to a period where Grand Viziers controlled the empire. Initially, times were better. There were some years of military success in Transylvania, then Crete in 1669, and Polish southern Ukraine under Kaprulu Fazil Ahmed, who was the Grand Vizier from 1661 to 1676. The renewed aggressiveness came to an end under Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha when he led a huge army to take Vienna in the Great Turkish War of 1683 to 1687. The Ottomans were defeated by the Habsburg German and Polish forces under the Polish King Jan. This resulted in the Ottoman Empire giving up territory. From this point forward, the empire could no longer continue expansion in Europe and instead became more focused on defending what it had. As the Ottoman Empire began to recede, what became known as the Eastern Question became important. The Eastern Question was concerned with the issue of what should happen to the Balkans if and when the Ottoman Empire collapsed. After the Russians defeated the Ottomans for the second time in 1774, this question became even more important because the Russian victory gave them access to the land on the Black Sea coast. For the first time, this put them right in the Turkish heartland in the Balkans. Additionally, when they had the right to trade in and around the Ottoman Empire. This set the stage for a clash with the other great powers for dominance in the Ottoman regions. The great powers of Europe at the time were Great Britain, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russia, Germany, Italy, and France. None of the other countries wanted any of the others to conquer the land and become more powerful than themselves. Changes in political and economic life in the Balkans occurred around the late 1700s until the year 1878, which continued to cause the decline in the Ottoman power. Foreign trade was only 4% of the Ottoman economy, as the Muslims were discouraged from learning other languages or trading with Christians. Greeks, Armenians, Bulgarians, and other non-Muslim merchants were given trading licenses by the Ottoman Empire and soon dominated commerce because of their knowledge in the region, replacing the Western Europeans who formerly had dominated the trade. During the 1800s, trade expanded greatly, and the Ottomans began to import more than they exported, causing the wealth to leave the state. The Greek, Bulgarian, and other ship owners, along with the merchants, profited greatly, and their profits stayed in the region rather than going back to the center of the Ottoman Empire where it had in the past. This weakened the empire. The Greeks and others in the Balkan region became increasingly wealthy and powerful, but did not care whether the Ottoman Empire was strong or not. As these non-Ottoman regions gained wealth, their feelings of nationalism grew. As the Ottoman Empire continued to decline, nationalism in the Balkan region grew. Under the millet system, religiously defined communities of non-Muslims, the Balkan people were able to keep their religion, traditions, and identity. They were a subservient class and were not considered to be Muslim Turks. In Serbia, the Orthodox Church was instrumental in preserving their identity. The first of the revolutions in the Balkan was the Serbian Revolution, which lasted from 1804 until 1817. One factor that led to the revolution was that Serbia was across the Danube River from the Habsburg state and was exposed to new ideas such as a secular society, law, and philosophy. In the war between Turkey and Austria, many Serbs fought alongside Austrians and learned about military strategies, weapons, and organization. They were also encouraged by Russia, which was an Orthodox country that had modernized and was able to threaten the Turks. Despite these factors, the Serbians did not initially have the intention to overthrow the Sultan's rule in the area. It resulted from further deterioration of the Ottoman system when the Ottoman troops left the Balkans to defend Egypt from an invasion by Napoleon. This caused a great deal of unrest and crime, including murder, in the Balkan region. The first phase of the revolution was a revolt against the abuses that were occurring. There were 3 additional phases lasting until 1817 when Serbia gained its autonomy. The Greek Revolution, which began in 1821, was the second fight for independence in the Balkans. There are some major differences between the revolutions in Greece and Serbia. The war in Serbia was spontaneous and was not started as a war for independence, whereas the Greek Revolution was planned. In Serbia, the most educated and wealthiest people were exposed to the European revolutionary ideas and thought they would be beneficial for their people. In contrast, the wealthiest Greeks were the people most opposed to the revolution. They had a lot of power in the Balkan region. When the Serbians and Romanians supported enemies of the Ottoman Empire, the Turks put the Greeks in charge of them as a punishment. The Greeks had additional power because Muslims were discouraged from learning foreign languages, which allowed the Greeks to become ambassadors, contractors, and other important roles in the Ottoman society. The Greeks dominated Balkan commerce because they were ship owners and trade agents for Westerners. Another key advantage the Greeks had was that the Orthodox Patriarch controlled the Orthodox millet. Millets were the communities established along religious, not ethnic lines, which the Muslims had set up to govern the non-Muslim populations. Because the Greeks controlled the millets, they had religious, administrative, educational, and legal power in the Balkans, and other Orthodox tended to be Hellenized in the region. The other Orthodox communities, like the Serbians and Romanians, had little power because they were punished when they had helped the enemies of the Ottoman Empire. Another fact that tended to reduce the desire for revolution was that only half of the 4 million Greeks lived in what is now Greece. If they all lived together in one area, then there would have been more incentive to start a revolution against the Ottoman Empire. Although there were factors that acted against the revolution, there were others that supported it. Many Greeks did not share in the wealth and power and wanted revolution, but initially the lack of real leaders prevented them from organizing and starting a revolution. After the fall of Constantinople back in the 15th century, many Greeks had fled to other countries and kept their heritage alive. Now these same Greek communities were exposed to the Western European ideas and relayed them on to the Greek merchants who shipped goods to their area. Some Greeks started to accumulate wealth, and with this wealth they were able to start schools, commission art to promote Greek culture, literature, mythology, and other traditions. Also, when Napoleon took over the Ionian Islands, the Greeks were exposed to more of the ideas emerging from the Western Europe, like the Enlightenment. Great Britain then took over the islands and brought with them liberal ideas like constitutional government. The French and its nearby territories continued to expose them to the revolutionary spirit. Along with the Serbian Revolution in 1804, the Greeks were surrounded and encouraged that change was possible. Unlike the Serbian Revolution, which was spontaneous, the Greek Revolution was a conspiracy that was created by a secret and Greek group called the Philiki Eteria, Friends of the People. They wanted to liberate Greece from the Ottoman rule. The leaders of this group were the Greek merchants, and they were planning to attack the Ottoman Empire in 3 places: the Peloponnese, Constantinople, along with Moldavia and Wallachia in the Romanian region. The only success of these 3 attacks was in the Peloponnese. The war dragged on until 1825 for several reasons. Neither the Greeks nor the Ottomans were strong enough to claim victory. In Greece, there were several civil wars over the Greeks over who was going to control Greece, which was divided along class lines. A major reason that the Ottomans could not claim victory is because of the intervention of Russia, Great Britain, and France. This goes back to the great powers in the Eastern question. The Russians wanted to help the Greeks because they were Orthodox, but were afraid that an independent Greek state would become allies with Great Britain. The British were sympathetic to the Greeks, but were afraid that Turkey would get too weak, allowing Russia to take over the Turkish straits and the threatened Mediterranean trade routes. In 1825, the Egyptian navy, led by Mehmet Ali, an ally of Turkey, went in to invade the Greek islands and capture the port of Navraino. The great powers would not let Mehmet have control of both Egypt and Greece, so the British, French, and Russians sent a fleet of ships into the bay to mediate a peace agreement. A battle accidentally ensued, and much of the Egyptian fleet was sunk. The last phase of the war occurred at the same time as the Russian-Turkish War of 1828 to 1830, when the Russians invaded Turkey. The Sultan gave up when the Russian army almost reached Istanbul in 1829, so the Russians, British, and French participated in the drawing up of the peace settlement. This is called the London Protocol. In 1830, which was created a small Greek kingdom. In reality, even though the Greeks had won their independence, they were initially ruled by a German prince and German cabinet acceptable to the three great powers. In 1843, there was a military coup in which resulted in a new constitution in 1844. For the first time, this gave power to the Greek people to elect members of one of the two chambers under the new constitution. These chambers still had to share their power with the German king. The system was corrupted and another military coup occurred in 1864 and replaced the old constitution with a new one. A new king was appointed, a Danish prince named George I. The new constitution created a single-chambered legislature in which the representatives were elected by the people. This coup greatly reduced the influence of the great powers because under the new constitution, the legislator had much more power than the king. The nationalism trend in the Balkans continued in the 19th century with the revolutions in Hungary and Romania. These revolutions were inspired by the French, American, Serbian, and Greek revolutions that had occurred in the past several decades. The Balkan revolutions threw off domination by the Ottomans and led to political, economic, and social reforms.